Welcome to Heightened Life, a place for conversation that sparks insight and inspires growth. Welcome to episode 5 of Heightened Life. I'm Amanda Goines. In this episode, I chat with my friend and force for positivity, Wes Annac. Wes is a writer who focuses on love centered living and spirituality. We discuss the importance of staying in alignment and not getting swept away by drama and chaos. Let's get started. Hi, Wes. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Take a moment and tell everyone a bit about yourself.
Well, I am a blogger who is interested in spirituality and nature, as well as love and empathy as kind of a religion or a way of life. I used to believe in some complicated New Age type of philosophies, things that involve channeling and certain practices that might be considered esoteric or even occult. But nowadays, I'm more interested in what I and a few others refer to as the path of love and empathy and service. So that is where I'm at right now. And I'm hoping for the work that I do from here to reflect that more so than sort of a new age style perspective. I still want to integrate spirituality into it, but get away a little bit from some of the more complicated new age philosophies and into a more simplistic philosophy of love and compassion as a way of life.
Absolutely. I think that is a path that you and I have both kind of come to from similar backgrounds because I used to be more into the new age sort of approach to spirituality and have really just transitioned to focusing on love and empathy and bettering myself. So kudos to you for that. So
Well, thank you.
what does to you like on a day-to-day basis, what are some things you put into practice to kind of to approach this love-centered living?
Well, for me, it just basically comes down to the way that I treat other people. I want to be a positive force in other people's lives to the greatest extent that I can. And that was something that admittedly I have sort of floundered on this year, with this being kind of a crazy, chaotic election year. I've kind of let the craziness get the better of me. One of my favorite musicians, Ziggy Marley, has a quote in one of his songs where he sings, "Who will be above the fray when the fray is getting higher every day?" Basically meaning that it's getting harder and harder to escape the desire to participate in all of the chaos and the arguing and the craziness, particularly on social media. So right now, my focus is to kind of get away from that and try to find common ground with people who I might not agree with politically. And that's how it manifests on the internet in terms of my interactions with other people. But then in my everyday life, because of course, everyday life is separate from internet life in many ways. I don't have a lot of political discussions with people in my everyday life. It's mostly, friends or people I see at work. So I'm pretty much just focused on trying to be a positive force in the lives of others. If somebody needs help with something, help them without feeling begrudging about it. And just generally, I try to keep a smile and a positive attitude and basically express empathy whenever somebody in my life shows that they need it. So that's where I'm at right now. That's how it is manifesting in terms of a daily practice. And of course, it helps to have practices such as writing and meditation and things like that that help me to stay in that headspace, because writing helps me express some of my deepest thoughts and feelings, which sort of clears my head because these things build up slowly if you're not able to find an outlet to get them out. So that clears my head, and the meditation especially clears my head and leaves me able to be that force of love and empathy that I hope to be in the world. And it is, of course, an everyday practice. Some days are easier than others, but generally that's where I'm at right now.
Yes, 2020 has definitely been a chaotic year, and especially with just so many different chaotic factors. It's like the 2020 bingo card that people refer to online. You think that you think there's no more chaos that can happen, but I think 2020 is a good exercise in meditation, just being able, trying to be in a meditative state when all the chaos is occurring in your life and outside of your life, even just, um, in the world at large. What are some things you mentioned, writing and meditation? Are those the main things that you use to stay anchored during chaotic times?
Yeah, those are the main things, but I have a couple other practices. For me, this year, exercise has become very important and very crucial to clearing my mind because I'm prone to small bouts of a very light form of depression. I wouldn't even call it mild depression, just feelings of isolation and loneliness and heavy thoughts that try to take over. And for me, getting into the gym and lifting weights, doing some push ups, running on the treadmill, or maybe even playing basketball has become absolutely essential to clearing my mind and being able to stay in that positive space, because the less that I do those things, the more those heavy thoughts build up and I find myself more anxious, maybe more edgy towards other people when that's not the way that I want to be. So that combined, I mean, really it's all part of a lifestyle that is a continuous practice. And like I said, some days are easier than others, whether it's some days it's easier to be empathetic or some days it's easier to get into the gym and work out. Some days it's easier than others, but it is a practice that I've decided to stick with, even if I have really bad days. And trust me, this year, like you said, it's been a crazy year, kind of the 2020 bingo card of what's about to happen next. It's been very hard to keep my head above water, and I'm sure some people listening out there can relate. But for me, that daily practice that is kind of a blend of all of those things, the working out, writing, meditation, that has become absolutely essential to trying to live the life that I want to live.
Yes, I found as well. I've recently incorporated, well, in the past couple years, I've been exercising a lot more, and I try to keep a routine of meditation. I journal every day and exercise, and I found that having some sense of routine, but still being flexible with it is key, because some days you may not feel like exercising as much, but you might write 10 pages or something like that. So
Of
definitely.
course.
So I think having some sense of structure or routine or something that you can go to that's a stable force with all this chaos is a very good thing. It's definitely been key for me. So, who are some of your biggest
Absolutely.
influences?
Well, as I mentioned before on the previous podcast, Ziggy Marley is a very big influence for me because his message is rooted in, of course, what everybody knows the Marleys for, which is Rastafari, which is its own separate religion. His Ziggy's message is rooted in that, but more than anything, his message is the same message that I try to emulate with my work, and his work is in fact the inspiration for what I do. You may have heard the Ziggy Marley song "Love Is My Religion."
Yes.
And as far as I understand, that song represents the path that that individual is on, and that is one that I hope to emulate. So he's definitely my biggest influence. I have, of course, other musicians who are influences, and a few well-known spiritual figures like Alan Watts or Jiddu Krishnamurti. I probably mangled that name. I apologize, but I like to read some of their work and get the unique insight that I get, particularly from Krishnamurti. His work challenges me on a deeper level than almost anything else.
Oh, I'm not familiar with him. You'll have to send me information so I can check some of his work out. I am a huge Alan Watts fan. The book on the taboo against knowing who you are is one of my all-time favorite books ever. I read that back in probably 2010, 2011, and I think that was one of the things that kind of opened up a whole new world for me as far as just perception and life. So, what do you have on the horizon for you in the near future?
Well, for me in the future, I'm hoping to establish and maintain a solid writing schedule and a solid schedule of creating content. Now, this is something that I've been sort of wrestling with and struggling with for a very long time. But now that I know this sounds a little silly, but now that I've been getting into the gym more and exercising and getting to a bit of a higher level within myself, I now feel increased inspiration to take that over to the writing. Essentially, I've been able to commit to a pretty disciplined exercise routine, and so now I would like to commit to a disciplined writing and content creating routine. So I'm hoping for my open-hearted rebellion blog to be pretty active over the next few weeks and months as I work on establishing a steady pattern of content creation throughout the year. So basically, for me, it is just a continuous process of challenging myself, trying to keep my ego in check and the parts of me that just want to rest and relax, trying to keep those parts in check and just trying to do a little better each day. I can't promise that I'm going to be that I'm going to be able to live the life that I envision overnight, because it is a step-by-step process and a day-by-day process. But where I'm at right now is that I am just on a continuous path of at least attempted growth and evolution that I hope to be reflected in the way that I treat others around me. Because I never used to be a particularly empathetic person, especially when I was a teenager. I know we all have regrets from, years past and whenever we were younger and didn't know any better, but I would sort of like for my continual attempts to improve myself and be a better person to perhaps make up for the times in the past that I didn't know any better, and that I allowed my behavior to be out of control or allowed myself to have a complete lack of empathy for the way that I treated other people. I don't know if, looking back on your past self and wishing you could have done better and feeling a desire to do better now is something that you have met with in your own life, but I would be interested in hearing your experiences with that, just with the continuous attempts to better yourself as you look back on previous versions of yourself, if that makes sense.
Oh, absolutely. Yes. I feel like, for a while, I tried so hard to change everybody around me without looking inward, and I was projecting on people a lot. I would find things that annoyed me in other people and scrutinize that instead of working on resolving those issues in myself. So I've been on a very similar path to you as far as I started becoming really disciplined about working out and certain things in my life, and that spilled over into content creation as far as writing and the podcast and things like that as well. And just, I think sometimes having a little bit of something that gives you that sense of accomplishment is a big catalyst for being able to improve yourself. And I think that the best way that we can impact the world is by becoming the best version of ourselves possible instead of trying to judge and change everybody else. And that's what I've really been working towards recently.
I agree 100% with that. And I think it's also important to keep in mind that in doing so, in trying to hold yourself accountable for actions in the past that may have not been, so enlightened, so to speak, it's very important to have forgiveness for yourself, to understand that maybe you didn't know better at that time, but now that you do know better, you have an opportunity to do better with the knowledge that you have now. I have found self forgiveness to be very crucial, both in trying to be a better person to the people around me and in trying to maintain that consistent, disciplined workout and writing routine. Because there have definitely been days where maybe I took it too easy on myself. And I think back on that and I'm like, man, what are you doing? That's not, you're not living in alignment with the goals and the path, excuse me, and the path that you envision for yourself. But instead of wallowing in negativity about it and thinking, oh, well, I might as well just give up. I already ruined this opportunity and this one and maybe the next one. No, you have to be able to forgive yourself so you can have the courage and the confidence to get back on that horse and do better.
Absolutely. I think if you hold grudges toward yourself, then you just get in the way of your own progress, like you said. And I know I've done that several times, just with personal and creative endeavors. I'll start out and I'm not immediately successful at something. And then I'm just like, oh, I'll just give up, and then you end up feeling even more regret over that, over the fact that you gave up. I think now I'm of the mindset I'd rather pursue the things that I enjoy full out. And if I fail, I fail, but at least I won't have the regrets of not trying. And
Exactly.
and definitely as far as just, I think everybody has regrets or things that they've held against themselves and the funny thing you mentioned, in less enlightened days. Okay, you made that reference. I think it's funny that some of the times when we look back and think, oh, I was making bad decisions or I treated people poorly or things like that, was the times that we felt the most self-righteous, or you know what I'm saying? Like the times
Oh, yeah.
where I thought I was maybe the most enlightened was when I was treating people the most poorly at the time. And just looking back on that, it makes me yeah, it's mind bending almost, to think. And
It is.
I think that that's one thing I've really been trying to put into practice recently is just with all the chaos going on, sometimes it's so easy to judge people, and I'm really trying very hard not to judge people because I mean that's a spiritual and religious tenet that goes way back to my like 5-year-old going to church with my parents stage, judge not. And that's something that I've always thought is
Absolutely.
is admirable. And I've fallen into that trap so much, especially in social media and such, to just be scrolling and not even just scrutinize people for silly things that I would hope they wouldn't scrutinize me for. So I'm really, really trying hard not to do that these days. I like there's an analogy, and I may be getting this wrong, but basically it's that great people talk about ideas, and then it goes on and on and on to like weak-minded people talk about other people. And
That's right.
yeah, and that's
And
something that really every once in a while I'll think about that, and I'm like, ooh, gotta calm down, no gossip.
yeah, I know what you mean. Well, I'm certainly no stranger to that. I've done that plenty this year, especially on Facebook, with political issues being discussed quite chaotically right now. I've definitely fallen prey to those arguments. But isn't it funny how, as you said, whenever we feel our most self-righteous, whenever we're going after somebody and we're thinking I am on the right side of history here, or I am on the right side of this debate, and I'm going to dig my claws into this other person and show them exactly how they're wrong and assassinate their character. Isn't it funny how whenever we feel our most righteous is when we are often the most disconnected from the true self, the higher self, the more enlightened self, whatever you want to call it? We think we are in the right when in fact we are in what is essentially, at least from my religious or spiritual perspective, we are in the ultimate wrong, because we are out of center, out of balance, and we have left that space of empathy in ourselves that allows us to, grasp different perspectives and understand why somebody may feel the way they do about a certain issue. It's very important to understand that we're all different people sharing this planet. And yes, we have our similarities. Yes, we are all one in certain ways. And I personally, maybe this is a little too spiritual or woo woo, I believe that we are all one soul and one consciousness, split and divided into all these various personalities.
Mhm.
But in that, we have been filtered through different personalities that give us differences in opinion, differences in perspectives. And those differences in opinion often come from the different perspectives that we have cultivated as we grew up and lived certain lives. We all live in different areas. Maybe some of us live in more liberal areas and some of us live in more conservative areas. The way that each of us grows up shapes the kind of person that we become into adulthood. And so we need to understand that when we're going after some other person for some perspective that they have, let's say on social media, that we don't agree with or that we dislike, stop and, I guess, empathize with them. Like, why do they feel this way? Try to put yourself in their shoes. uh what circumstances with their upbringing have led them to think this way? So that's something that I've been trying to work on with social media, is to kind of get outside of myself and not engage every petty squabble that I feel, oh, well, I have an ability to string together some words that might slander somebody, or it might prove my point in just the perfect way that maybe other people reading it, wish they could have said. But is that really necessary? I don't think it is. I think it's best to come at people from a place of empathy rather than a place of assumed self-righteousness.
Absolutely. I actually, right before I met with you now, I was scrolling on social media and I saw a post that said something to the effect of you waste energy from arguing with people who are committed to not understanding what you have to say, or committed to disagreeing
Absolutely.
with you. And so many people go into conversations or arguments or what have you with the intent of I'm going to prove my point, from both sides, without actually being open to what the other person is saying. And it gets to the point where you're just kind of spinning your tires there. And something else I've really just 2020 has taught me in general, I think, is that I think so many of us come from this perspective of we learn what we were taught we're taught certain things as children. We grow up in certain environments, like you said, and we form this belief structure. And so many people never take the time to examine what why they believe the things they believe. That's something I've been really working on in 2020, is just examining what I believe and why I believe it. And do I really believe this, or is this just something that was inherited from other people? And is that something you can relate to as well?
Absolutely. I know exactly what you mean. I think a lot of it comes down to the fact that many people's opinions, especially their political opinions, often come from a deeply personal place. Again, we are all, kind of molded and conditioned by the circumstances that we grow up in. And I think this is a big reason that people cling so tightly to their political beliefs and ideologies, which I certainly do. I consider myself to have both liberal and conservative values, but I will certainly admit to leaning left. And the more that I think about that, well, why do I lean left, and why do I tend to feel, so offended by people who are very far on the left as well as very far on the right? And I think the reason that I lean left is because, for the most part, now maybe some of it is inauthentic or manufactured or fake, but for the most part, to me, the left seems to have ideals that are based more on empathy and compassion and the kinds of ideals that I try to live my life in accordance with. Now, don't get me wrong, I do feel that left leaning politicians sort of use this in an inauthentic way to get votes and garner support. The Democrats pretend to be the compassionate party when really they are full of just as many, uh, to sound crude, just as many rich crooks as, the other side. But nonetheless, I feel compelled to support left leaning causes more than right leaning causes, because they seem to come from that feeling of empathy and that feeling of putting yourself in other people's shoes. And we have to help people who are struggling and who need it. But then on the other side, I have certain conservative values that I try to examine. Like, why do I think this way? Is there something that, I'm trying to prove to myself or to the world by having this belief? Uh, and it's something, this kind of introspection is something that sadly I think a lot of people don't have. I think people are sort of married to their ideas and beliefs and are not willing to consciously and openly examine them through an unfiltered lens with no bias. And along with them clinging to their beliefs because this is something they hold close to themselves as a vital aspect of their personality, I think tribalism has a lot to do with it. And I think tribalism, now this is, keep in mind what I'm about to say is coming from somebody who is actively trying to create his own culture and his own community of people who believe in similar values of love and empathy and compassion. So perhaps I'm a little bit of a hypocrite for what I'm about to say, but I think tribalism is a big problem in society, because I think we cling to our tribe the same way we cling to our political beliefs, and we are so unwilling to not only examine ourselves and our beliefs and that of our community, but to reach a hand out to the other tribes and say, hey, I may not agree with you 100%, but I reach out to you in love and empathy and solidarity. I think we need to, if not completely get rid of tribalism, maybe find a way to connect with each other, various tribes and cultures and communities on some kind of deeper level that perhaps can manifest from our acknowledgement of our connection as, one soul or one consciousness. Now I know that was quite a mouthful, but I'm curious if you have any thoughts about the problems with tribalism in our society and ways that we could perhaps address these problems.
Yeah, I think the problem is the first thing that came to mind, I'll just go with that. Uh, I read years ago the Dalai Lama's book, The Art of Happiness in a Troubled World. I think that may not be verbatim the title, but basically he talks about the problem is when we create an us group, or a tribe, then we by default create a them to be against. And I think that that's really, and we've done that in so many ways in our society, just create a tribe upon, and then micro tribes inside of that tribe. It's like when you're in high school and there are the tables of kids that sit, like certain kids sit at this table and certain kids sit at this table, and they don't talk to each other, and then they start to rank each other, and becomes very hierarchical, and not that there is anything wrong with striving to be better, or with having a group of people you identify with, because I think both of those things are necessary. But I think that it is absolutely key to reach outside of your comfort zone, or your tribe of people or ideas, and see what else is out there, because that's the only way to really create change within yourself and within society at large. If everybody just stays with what they know, then we never have any change or momentum. Does that make any sense?
It makes perfect sense. No, I agree 100%. I get in a mood sometimes where I feel like disconnected from everybody and sort of, this will sound melodramatic, like, oh, I hate everybody. I don't want to connect with anybody or be a part of any tribe. And those are, the harder days or the worst days. But there are other days that I feel like, I just want to give everyone a hug. My liberal friends, I love you. My conservative friends, I love you. I definitely don't always agree with you, but I have that love. Even my QAnon friends, I love all of those people. I have quite a few friends, even a couple pretty close friends on the internet who have gotten into QAnon this year. And I have openly, spoken out against QAnon on social media and pretty much drew my line in the sand of letting people know where I stand on that particular issue. But, that's not going to stop me from showing love and support to my friends who maybe believe in QAnon, but I was friends with these people well before that. I'll
Mm.
let them know I don't agree with their beliefs, and hopefully, on their end, they don't let that be a reason to suddenly stop connecting with me. Like, oh, he doesn't believe in this thing that I'm so passionate about, because I'm willing to reach out from my community and my tribe and reach a hand over to you and say, hey, I don't agree with you, but I still think we should be connected because, we should all be connected. All these various tribes should come together and find common ground. Like you said, we need to leave our comfort zone, which of course, we have to leave our comfort zone to examine our own beliefs and get to a place where we are comfortable connecting with people outside of our tribe. But it's something that we absolutely need to do. Otherwise, we're all just going to keep fighting. We're going to keep arguing and yelling at each other and typing these crazy all caps messages over social media and levying outrageous accusations against each other because we don't agree with somebody's politics. And it's only going to get worse if we don't actively address the problem, which is this sense of separation that we feel from other people who have different beliefs.
I had to giggle when you were talking about the all caps messages. It's like the internet form of yelling, It's like I'm making my point really seriously now because I'm typing in all caps, so people are going to pay attention. And I think to me, a lot of times that just comes off as like, wow, I don't even want to read this now. But I mean, that's just a personal opinion.
Yeah, me personally, I have trouble reading certain things on social media. Now, I'm not really a grammar Nazi or a spelling Nazi, but if a message is just typed out very poorly, I would absolutely never ridicule a person for that, because I understand some people have developmental disabilities and it's generally more difficult for some people to type out clear and succinct messages than it is for other people. But I personally, I have trouble reading things that come across as if maybe they were written by, a preteen in their basement. I can't. I've like the
Yeah.
all caps messages when people get overly emotional and start levying accusations that are crazy. And I just, no, that's the craziness that a lot of us have been dragged into this year, though. I
I
forgive
think
everybody. I think,
absolutely. I think a lot of it is with all the chaos going on. So with all the chaos going on, a lot of people are just purely reactive instead of taking time to respond to situations in a thoughtful and empathetic manner. People are just immediately going for the emotional response, and that's something that I had a lot of problems with in the past. I'm a very emotional person, and I had to really come to the point where I realized I'm not my emotions. There's something that is an aspect of me, but I don't have to, just because I feel a little tinge of emotion about a situation, I don't have to let everybody know, like, I feel this way and you have to feel this way too, and I think that's where empathy is key, because when you can realize other people have these feelings strongly because of their perspective and their life circumstances, and just back off and pause for a moment before you respond. And that's something that's been crucial for me, is just, well, with social media, it's kind of like that analogy that you are the five people you surround yourself with the most. And with social media, if you're constantly surrounding yourself with negativity and rage and drama, you're going to start to cultivate that in your emotions and your life in general. So I've really been trying to curate my social media and my internet, interaction recently, and I absolutely agree with what you've said about everything. So
I
is
know
there,
what you mean.
or do you have any final thoughts or things you'd like to share before we go?
Final thoughts. I'll just respond to what you were just saying. Of course, I'm sure you and many of the listeners are aware that the Facebook algorithm is, of course, set up to reflect the content that you engage with. So the more that you interact with, divisive political content, whether you're arguing on some comment thread about some political issue or, anything like that, the more you interact with that, the more of that type of thing you're going to get on your timeline on Facebook. And that's something that I noticed, I'd say about a month or two ago. I was pretty heavily entrenched, excuse me. I was pretty heavily entrenched in a lot of, political arguing and name calling and mudslinging on Facebook. And it's something that I very much regret. But now I look back on it again, of course, now with the opportunity to do better. But lately, the past month or so, I've made sure to interact with more positive things, more enlightening things. And by the way, I'm very glad that I have uh, scaled my circle on Facebook down a little bit to you and our mutual friends, Linda and Erica, who post a lot of positive things and a lot of things that come from a place of love. And now I notice that I'm seeing that more, and I'm starting to feel more uplifted from Facebook. Whereas before I was about ready to delete the darn thing because there was just I didn't want to be on there anymore. So much toxicity and fighting and arguing. But I think it's just a lesson to be conscious of the things you're engaging with on a daily basis and the consequences of that continuous heavy engagement. You're going to find more stuff to get mad about if you're used to getting mad about things and you're actively looking for things. Oh, what are the Republicans doing today? Oh, those jerks, anything like that. So that would be my final thoughts here, is to just be aware of the things that you're engaging in and the long-term effect, not just the everyday effect, but the long-term effect that can have. It all just comes down to self-awareness and awareness of the consequences of one's actions.
Yes, and I agree with the people that you mentioned in our Facebook circle. There are a few more, but those Linda and Erica, well, Rain and Erica, they're great, and I enjoy having you and them and a few other people in my circle that I connect with every day. And it just, having that, it's like an oasis in a
Yeah.
desert of drama. So, well, tell everyone where they can find your blog online, and where to look for your new posts and things.
All right. You can find my blog at openheartedrebellion.com. That's usually where any of my newer articles will go up. I don't have a consistent daily or weekly schedule set yet for whenever I will be posting the articles, but I'm hoping to cross that bridge as I get more into the routine of writing. Right now, I'm focusing on just trying to write and make content every day and get myself into kind of a groove of that. And then, excuse me again, sorry. And then let the scheduling and the planning come after that. But I'm also on Facebook. It is facebook.com/Wes Annac. I will probably post some of my full articles to Facebook as well, though sometimes you may just get a link directing you back to the blog. And I do have a YouTube channel. Honestly, I never really engaged with it. I couldn't even tell you the link. It may be youtube.com/Wes Annac. It may be something different. I might have to have you update that in the description. So I apologize
Yeah, I
for
was gonna say,
that.
I know
But
I'm subscribed to it. I just I don't remember what it's called either.
I never post to it. But if I ever eventually start my own podcast, that might be one of the places you could find that. But that's not even, I'm not trying to promise anything. That's just an idea for a potential in the future. But yeah.
Oh, and now on your website, there's a place where people can subscribe to get email updates, correct? Because I think I do, right? Like when you write
Absolutely. You can
okay,
get,
yeah. So
you can,
do that. Go to is openheartedrebellion.com or .org?
.com.
Okay, openheartedrebellion.com, and subscribe, because he posts great things. I love reading your posts. I commented on one the other day, I think. And
Well, thank you.
so yeah, thank you so much for joining me today. It's been great, and you have an open invite. Come back anytime and we'll continue this conversation further. Maybe we should,
Awesome.
maybe after the election we can come back and have some, like, you know, some thoughts of not even political thoughts, just seeing how the chaos and drama is going in life, if it's gotten better or worse.
Hey, that would be great. I would be glad to discuss that with you.
Awesome. Well, I will talk to you later, and I'll see you around the internet, and have a great day.
All right. Thank you. Have a great day, everybody.
Thanks so much for checking out our conversation. Be sure to take a look at Wes's blog at openheartedrebellion.com and subscribe for his newest releases. Also, be sure to check out heightenedlife.org and follow along on social media for updates and insights throughout the week. Until next time, much love, and I will see you later.